Hello and welcome back to Overbooked. I'm Amanda and today we're going to be doing a book review on the book The Far Field by Madhuri Vijay. So this is another book review that I'm doing for the 2021 Reading Women Challenge. If you don't know what the Reading Women Challenge is, I suggest you check out my video where I talk about the Reading Women Challenge and I go through my entire TBR for the year for that, and I will link that down below. I will also link the Reading Women Challenge, the Reading Women podcast website down below. I like their podcast, I enjoy it, I like their reading challenge, I follow their hashtag on Instagram. It's a fun time. Check it out. So let's dive into The Far Field, shall we? Overall, I thought this book was good and captivating, but it wasn't my favorite. So the challenge prompt that I read this for was number 1, longlisted for the JCB Prize, and I believe that's a India Literature Prize. Let's Google. An Indian Literary Award established in 2018. It is awarded annually with something amount in dollars prize to a distinguished work of fiction by an Indian writer working in English or translated fiction by an Indian writer. So I picked The Far Field because it's been on my TBR for a long time. It's a very pretty cover if you guys have ever seen it. I don't know which side it'll be on, but it's very pretty. So The Far Field is about our main character, and it's like kind of set in maybe like 2 kind of time periods. It's like the 80s and like early thousands, 90s, and that kind of time range. But our main character has recently just lost her mother, and she's kind of like not coping well, and she is kind of like just drifting aimlessly. She tries to take a job, it's not really doing very well. Her and her father just aren't on like great terms, and he like seems to like wanting to be moving on with his life, and they're at like this dinner and he tells her like, hey, I'm thinking that I want to get remarried, and she's like, okay, surprisingly okay with that. Also, I want to go on like this trip. So she tells her dad that she's gonna go on this trip because as a child, and you'll see this in the book because the chapters kind of go back and forth between like the present day and then our main character as a child, they had this man who would come, and he was like a traveling like clothes salesman. And he was like what our main character thought like was the closest resemblance to of a friend for her mother. Okay, so we moved because I'm still getting used to this new apartment and the light situation. Did not make it in time, okay? So our main character, yes, her mom has this friend who is a traveling like clothes salesman, and he like visits their home often, and her mother and this salesman like strike up a friendship, and it seems like he's the only one that kind of understands her mother. And that was kind of an interesting aspect of this book as well. Like her mother has what I kind of thought when I was reading, they don't really come out and say it, is she has like some mental health issues. Either it's depression or just anxiety or bipolar disorder. It seems like she really has like a range of feelings and emotions that are kind of drastic and change very quickly and at a drop of a hat. And she doesn't really seem to have a lot of self-awareness, which is kind of hard to have in social situations. So she doesn't have a ton of friends. And so our main character like sees that like this traveling clothes salesman seems to be her only friend. And so as an adult, when she's trying to come to terms with the death of her mother, she thinks that if she goes and seeks out like this person that she knew as a child, that knew her mother and seemed to understand her mother so well, that she'll like kind of be able to understand her mother's death or her mother as a person, and it will help her be able to deal with her mother's death. So the friend was from this village, I think it's called Kashmir, and it's like this journey that she has to take, and our main character is definitely privileged. She lives the luxury of the class that she's born into. She doesn't really have to do much to take care of herself, really, like, or by the means of financial means. Her dad has a very well-paying job. He supported both her and her mother. He got her into college. She kind of can really do whatever she wants, and she doesn't really have to worry about her situation. So she's in a very privileged class of people, and then she's gonna go travel to these different areas where there's not that much of a like high class or privileged class that she's used to. So she starts in this one area of India, and I cannot remember, which also, side note, I also very highly recommend checking out the audiobook. It was on Hoopla through your library for instant borrowing, and the narrator did a great job, and obviously she pronounces everything correctly, so it's very nice to actually hear the correct pronunciation and like all of the terms, and I thought it was really well done. But we stop at this first area of the country, and she connects with these people there, and then she moves on to where the person that she's looking for actually lives. And it almost seems though, like as she's like traveling, she's just like unaware that she's causing issues. Like she's just very naive and unaware of what's going on in India and what's going on in the culture around her and what's going on between the different classes and different groups of people. And she just doesn't really get it or see it or understand how she's impacting it. She does a lot of things that impacts the people that she cares about and that she's staying with, and she doesn't really get it. And it's just kind of infuriating because you're like, oh, but she kind of just keeps on doing her thing. And that's kind of how the book is. It's not, I was watching a review after I finished the book, and it was like, I think she described it perfectly, and I'll leave that review down below. It was like, there wasn't much of an actual plot in this book. It's mainly just you getting to know the character and the characters that are in this book, because there's not a lot that actually happens in the book. There's not a lot of events, and there's not a lot of like things that you're like, oh, well, this is what's happening, and there's kind of a lot that's happening. Like our main character does kind of a lot, and it's just kind of random at some points, and it's really just her, a lot of her thinking, a lot of her just talking, and a lot of just about her. So it's just kind of interesting how she is living kind of unaware in these people's presence and in these different areas. And of course, there are things that end up being very like not great in the end. So like I said, like overall, I really liked, I enjoyed this book. I don't think it's my favorite book. I'm still looking for like a reading women book to knock me off my socks, because that's usually what they do, but this one just wasn't it for me. This book is very slow paced. There was a lot of times, so I listened to, as I said, I listened to the audiobook. I think it was like 13, 14 hours, and it was just kind of like, usually I like listening to my audiobook. I can get outside, and it's very like, it makes me want to go outside and do something, or I really want to like listen to it, and this one I was just like, no, not really. I just wasn't like drawn to it. But when I was listening to it, I was captivated and I was interested. There was a lot of parts though where I was just kind of like, I don't really care. It was just kind of like, let's go. But like I said, like very, very slow moving, but obviously really beautiful descriptions. The author is a very beautiful writer. The descriptions were very, very beautiful and well done. And so I enjoyed that aspect of it. Another thing that I did enjoy that I think some people would like is just the mother-daughter relationship aspect of this. I really appreciated that. I could really connect with a lot of it. I think it's really nice to see depictions in literature where like the mother and the daughter are not best friends, and they are not yin and yang and just this duo. That's like a mother-daughter relationship can be complicated. It's tricky. I don't think there's another relationship that's quite like it. I mean, as a daughter myself who has a mother, it's somebody who you're always going to be connected to in this just certain way. And this book has a way of like, for me, that I felt really connected to, where it's just like, okay, like I know what this character is feeling, and I can see why our main character wanted so like hard or so badly to understand her mother and her relationship with this clothing salesman person, and just have some grasp of knowledge or understanding, because sometimes as a child and like with a parent, I think that's just something that you kind of want to know, and sometimes you don't really get to find out. And I could see her motivation and pull, and that was a very interesting aspect of the book for me, and I really enjoyed that. Overall, I think that if you enjoy experiencing a different culture, like a literary fiction novel, and really enjoy a character story, then I think this is a book for you. Otherwise, I mean, it might not be bad to check out. It's free on Hoopla, check it out, and if you like it, you can always DNF it. I know that if I I don't know if I would have been able to appreciate the story as much as I did if I would have read the physical book. I think the narrator really just does a great job in capturing this book, capturing this environment, and it really made me feel more connected to the book overall. Those were my thoughts on The Far Field. In the comments below, let me know if you have read The Far Field, if you're participating in the Reading Women Challenge, and if you are, what are you reading for the first prompt, A JCB Longlisted Prize? I would love to know. Please let me know in the comments below. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.